Hey everyone, welcome back to Life Off the Links season number 2. I'm your host Kevin Motznick, and we are starting off season 2 with a real treat. We are so honored and excited to have our guest with us. Mr. Ralph Haas is with us. Ralph, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. Thank you for being on the show. This is a real privilege. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to give some fast facts for Ralph and his life and his experience and involvement in the game of golf to give you guys all a little bit of a history of him. And then we're going to jump into picking the brain of Mr. Haas here because he's got a lot of stories and experience to share with us. So really excited about this. So Ralph, some fast facts about you. Born in 1930 in Buffalo, New York. You've had some tragedy that has been a big part of your life even from the very beginning, and we'll talk a little bit about that and how it shaped who you are. Was the head golf pro starting at age 24 at Transit Valley Country Club and was the pro there for 46 years, which is incredible. A veteran who has served in our military as a radio controller, and we are very grateful for your service. Has 70 plus years as a member of the PGA. Was the PGA National Vice President from 1970 to 1972. Was on the Ryder Cup Tournament Committee in 1971. Is a member of the Western New York PGA Hall of Fame. And probably most importantly, 3 children, 4 grandkids, and 2 great-grandchildren with 1 on the way. So, Ralph, as I just spit out some of those fast facts, what are reflections that come to mind?
Oh my goodness. Well, the facts are rather true. Of course, right now I'm old, so it, yeah, so many. I'm going to say lucky years. I've been very fortunate. You know, life is ups, has its downs, and we've all had them. So I'm very fortunate to be here, and I keep saying it's nice to be around to gripe about it.
Yeah, that's right. Better to be able to talk about it. Exactly right. Well, that is amazing. So 94 years old, you're one of the oldest members of the PGA and just have a wealth of experience and knowledge in the game of golf. It's been a part of your life from the very beginning. And so part of what we do, if you're new to the show with Life Off the Links, a big part of what we want to expose and talk about is, yes, we want to talk about golf and how awesome the game is and how it's been a part of your life. But more importantly, we love to hear about your life off the links. So who is it? What makes Ralph Haas Ralph Haas? How did the other things in your life shape who you are? And so obviously golf is a big part of that, and we're going to talk about that. But just to kind of give our viewers and our listeners a little background into your life, could you share a little bit about what life was like for you growing up in Buffalo, New York, and just the early days of your life?
Yes, again, life leads you into strange situations, and I was born in 30, very much unfortunately. My mother passed away right after childbirth. I had a twin sister. So we were brought up by my dad, basically with people came in to help, and he remarried when we were about 8 years old. But he was the green superintendent at Transit Valley Country Club, so I was brought up on a golf course, and so you saw everything from the old days when they hand cut things with hand mowers, and you had big old tractors you had to crank to get them started, and oh, very, very basic things that they did in those days, and you almost wonder as you look back how they were able to maintain a golf course with today's tons of fancy equipment and everything. But they did, and of course we were out in the country. We were way, way out in what we call the sticks, and you wonder how they ever picked that place to build a golf course, but it had great contours, and it was ideal for a golf course. And so a group of members got together and we formed this country club, and so it went from there. So yeah, so I was literally exposed to, when I was able to understand it, golf and the stuff that went along with it. And so part of what I feel life is all about is being lucky. And we have ups and we have downs, but I've been very lucky, and of course that was one of them. It didn't, there I was at a golf course. Wow, that's nice,
Yeah.
and so yeah, very fortunate under
Yeah.
those circumstances.
So, could you share a little bit more about, how being raised by your dad, maybe in those early years, not having a mom, how did that play into your childhood and kind of who you became as a young boy growing
Of
up?
course, being as young as my sister and I were, we didn't know what it was like, and as we grew up, we didn't know uh, what it was like to have a mother. We had a lot of ladies that came in to help out, and they were great. Uh, but you miss that, and of course, to this day, I don't have any idea what it was like.
Hmm.
But and my dad, I can't understand how he was able to, with little twin children, to get through all of this. Of course, with great relatives and mother and his mother and father and our aunts and our uncles, and we went into the city and for weekends and stuff. So we uh, we just got through it, and we really didn't know any better than what we were exposed to. And again, it's like anything else. You have the ups and downs, but most of the time I didn't understand what they were until as you grew up. And my dad did remarry when my sister and I were 8 years and 8 years old, and my stepmother had two children, a year or two older than us. But so at Point X, there were four of us, and that was a challenge, needless to say. And you didn't have many things in those days. I mean, you didn't have extra stuff where you could do this or do that. Where you were hoping to give the insurance man when he came by every week his 25 cents or uh, things like that. And what did you do? Well, the big deal was to take a ride on Sunday so you could see a place here or there. But in the local movie, I think if I recall correctly, if you got to go to a movie in the village of Williamsville, why I think it was 15 cents or something
Wow.
like that. So, but that's all you knew. And
Yeah.
and and when you tell stories about, wow, you did what? It was cost that much or whatever, people look at you. Wow, I think one of the interesting things was again we were out in the country and schooling, and about three-quarters of a mile from where my home was our school, and it was a one-room school, had one teacher, and she taught seven grades.
Oh my goodness.
And you tell people what? But we learned how to read and write and add and subtract, which I'm not so sure some of our well-educated students today can do. How much change do we get from that? 96. But that's the way it was, and um, so we did it, and
Wow.
because we had no other choice.
Yeah. So you're saying you didn't have a podcast back in the day, Ralph?
As I say, I didn't have one then, and didn't quite understand what one is now.
Ralph and I were talking right before we hit record, and I asked him if he'd ever been on a podcast, and he said you didn't know what a podcast was until this time. So we're fortunate to be the first for Ralph on the podcast. So that's fascinating, and I saw or read, or I think Amy sent me something that at about 9 years old is kind of when you started to really get into caddying and being around the golf course more and around the game. Could you share a little bit about the beginnings for you of finding a real love for the game of golf yourself?
Well, kind of unusual story. I was a little redhead hanging around, and of course, I'm 100 yards from the golf shop and everything, so I'd wander over. They'd chase me away and whatever. And of course, in those days, you had no such thing as pull carts or electric carts or anything. People either carried their own bag or had a caddy, and it was just prior, of course, to the start of the war, uh, and they had, oh, I think if I recall, it's like 300 caddies on the books
Wow.
that showed up, but they started drafting, so there were much fewer. So I'm wandering around one day, and my boss, who was in the pro, said, "Hey, Red," because they call me Red. Uh, you know how to carry a bag? I said, "No." He said, "Well, I have a problem, and you might be able to help me. I have a lady is going out to play, and I have no one to carry her bag. And if I show you how to carry a bag, you think you could do that?" And I said, "I certainly I could do that." So he showed me how to carry a bag. Said, "Now this is what you do. You watch when she swings, she hits the ball. You watch the ball where it goes. Then, after everybody in the group has done their job, you take off. You get to the ball first. You find the ball and you get there, and you set the bag down. You let her select the club, and you proceed." So I said, "Oh, I could do that, you know." So in any event, I did. And I don't think they thought I was going to make it because they sent relief out in the fifth hole and took my bag away from me, and I walked in. But you know what? I made 25 cents. So that was a big deal. So if you really can't call that a caddy job, but it was the first time that I pretended that I was one. So
That's
I guess it all started from there. And you didn't, you know, being around and being at the time, you know, during the war, where of course the membership was reduced considerably. Yet people that wanted to play golf found a way to get there, even to the extent that they might go to the neighbors and say, "Look, Mr. or Mrs. So and so, suppose we rent your garage so we could pull our car in your garage because we're not supposed to be at the country club because you had gas rationing, and of course you had officials that would look at it." So they would do that, park in the neighbor's garage and come over and play golf, and I would start to caddy. So I would say I really probably started to caddy when, you know, I was 12 or 13 years old. So
wow.
it went on from there.
Wow. All right, this is a little bit off of some of the stuff I've sent you, but I would love to hear some of your perspective on that period of time when the war was going on and what that was like to live through that and to be a young boy in that time frame.
Well, of course, again, I think being that young, you didn't necessarily appreciate what was happening, but so many things were rationed at the time. Uh, so you did what you did. You got what you could get, and uh, there wasn't a lot of things that you do. Say for entertainment, what did you do for entertainment? Well, most of the things that you did with your neighbor's kids, and you went out and you had a bat and a ball, and you played baseball. Or we had a beautiful lake in front of our clubhouse, so we would play hockey. And the maintenance barn in the shop that my dad was at would over the weekends and stuff, we'd move stuff around and play ping pong. But you did things like that because there wasn't a lot to be had, and everybody was on well, pretty restricted as to what they could do and what was available. And but I guess you didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So you know that's the way it was, and so you got by the best you could. And again, everybody, not everybody, but so many people were in the same boat. So yeah, you just did what you did, and accepted it as such, and maybe you didn't know there was any other way to go.
Yeah. Wow. That's yeah, fascinating. So as you're growing up and you start to become really involved and become passionate about the game, you're at the country club a lot. Were there some, as you were growing up, some idols of yours in the golf PGA professional ranks? Who were some of your idols that you really looked up to?
Well, of course, you know, primarily the person that I was involved with mostly was our golf pro at Transit Valley, who had been there since 1929, so had a bunch of years of experience. And he was kind of a well-connected golf pro as to the people that he was associated with. And in starting out, of course, names that you remember, and again, uh, being a caddy at the club, if the member liked you, he would let you use his golf clubs on Mondays where employees and caddies were able to play. So I guess that's basically, Mr. So and so, oh, thanks. Okay, Red, you can use my club. You use my clubs. If you don't lose any, you can use my golf balls. But you better not lose any or you're in trouble. So that's how I started using members golf clubs. So, a bunch of caddies who used to, hang out together and pitch pennies and stuff like that. But you'd go out and you played. And I guess you just, that was part of life. What else is there? And so you learn, you found out how to grip it. And then after that, you just take a swing at it and hope you hit it. And as time went on, you got a little bit better with it. But I never received much instruction, anything like that. So it was, learn as you did. But I got able to hit it pretty decently and stuff. So uh, that's my introduction to golf. And of course, say, well, nice about golf. Well, first of all, hopefully you're out there with people that you like and you enjoy and you're outdoors and it's a challenge, needless to say. Golf is not an easy attempt at life. It's very frustrating and it's
Yes.
demanding. But in doing it, of course, when I was able to graduate from my one-room school to go to an intermediate school, which was quite a distance from where we lived. Uh, and I wasn't did get to be a little bit better with my game. I guess you just I don't know. I don't think I had any other choice. There I was. That was golf, and you didn't do much else. So uh, the biggest part of life is, I think, being lucky. And
Yeah.
I was very lucky under those circumstances. Yeah.
So can you, yeah, share a little bit about that, your mindset, because, like you said, you lost your mom in childbirth. And for some people that would maybe consider that to be a unlucky thing or something that was a tough break, yet you still have this mindset of, I'm a lucky man to have experienced all these things. Can you just share a little bit about where that mindset has
Well,
come
of
from?
course, not having a mother, but I didn't know what it was to have a mother.
Right.
So I guess you just fell into what you were exposed to. Again, many nice ladies that came in and took care of us a good share of the time, and down the road again, a stepmother. So you didn't know and you didn't miss
Mm,
in those young stages
right.
having a mother, and you had a fair amount of attention from your grandparents who took us on weekends, and two sets of grandparents, aunts and uncles who were very, very kind and nice to us. So we accepted that, I guess, as, hey, that's my mom,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
my aunt. And so you didn't know what you missed.
Right.
So when I say lucky, I guess I was lucky. I was lucky to have great relatives
Mhm.
and people that cared. So got you through those early years, and needless to say, spoiled you to some degree,
Yeah.
whatever. And yeah, and all of that was a learning experience. But that's again, you go back to that's what life was. I remember some of the things, like my dad. I remember going through some papers that he left behind where he wrote a check to the grocery store for 95 cents for milk and meat. And you say, "What are you talking about?" But those are things you didn't know about, and so you didn't miss them because you didn't know what they were. And
Right.
again, I get back to the lucky part was to have the people that helped my sister and I grow up.
Wow. That is such a good perspective. And that's, You hear the saying, it takes a village to raise a family, and it seems like you had a really great village around you guys as you were growing
Yes,
up.
I did. Yes. Uh-huh.
That's really cool. All right, I want to talk a little bit about then your experience as you became a head professional at the country club, and 46 years serving as the head pro at Transit Valley Country Club. And so, what kind of led you to becoming the head pro there at the country club?
Again, luck, and very much so. Well, I graduated from high school in 1947,
Hmm.
and I didn't. Wasn't a great student, but I got through. And so I went to work for an insurance company in the city of Buffalo. You know, you did everything, go get the boss's cigars and do the filing and everything, but I was still around the club all the time.
Yeah.
So the pro at Point X down the road asked me if I would care to be one of his assistants.
Hmm.
And gosh, I said, yo, that would be great. So I spent a year at the insurance company and at $25 a week going down Buffalo, but jumped at it because I'm still living, you know, on the grounds with my dad. So I became the assistant. So I was an assistant pro at Transit Valley for 1949, 50, and 51, and I got my draft notice to go into the service, which was the height of the Korean War. In any event, uh, at in the fall, September of 51, actually, I got called into the service, and guess I got lucky. Some way, shape, form, or another. It was the height of the Korean War,
Right.
and everybody thought they were going in the infantry and end up shipping overseas. Well, some way, shape, form, I got connected to the Signal Corps and took basic training, believe it or not, in Augusta, Georgia, the home of the Masters.
Yeah. Wow.
So you went through like 8 weeks of schooling, and about the fifth week, someone asked you questions and gave you options of what you'd like to do as a serviceman in the Signal Corps. And, you know, half of them they gave me, I didn't know what they were, but I selected teletype operator. And about a couple of weeks later, the guy came back to me and said, hey, Haas, you put down teletype operator. What'd you do that for? I said, well, because I know how to type. Yeah, that's my, you know. He said, well, you know, based on your tests, you could be accepted into radio repair school.
Huh.
I said, you're kidding. I said, I know two things about a radio. You plug it in and you turn it on. He said, well, it's 26 weeks of school. That beats 8. I said, I take it. So anyway, they were converting at that time Camp Gordon into Fort Gordon, making it a permanent signal school. So, but most all of the complicated stuff was going into Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Uh, and stuff like simple radio repair was staying in Georgia. So we anticipated whatever. So our class got through, or our basic got through, and we got our orders, and 3 of us got sent to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Fort Monmouth, New Jersey was called the Country Club of the Army. It had its own golf course. It was 2 or 3 miles from the ocean in Asbury Park. You know, 45 minutes from New York City. Boom, boom. I said, I take it. So we were sent to Monmouth. And again, now 26 weeks of learning how to fix a radio. And I actually had my golf clubs under my bunk so that weekends could play golf and everything. So we're going through, and I'm speaking about luck, going through signal school and basically thinking of shipping overseas to Korea because the previous 11 classes had gone to Korea. So we anticipated that. So we got through with our schooling and we received our orders. My orders said, you're going to Austria. I didn't even know where Austria was. You know, 2 people to Alaska, 3 to Washington. So luck again, going to Austria during the Korean War, fantastic. And of course, Austria at the time was a divided country. You had a Russian zone, a French zone, a British zone, and an American zone. So we get sent to Austria, and it really was kind of great duty. And I had a buddy of mine, and we kept asking to get volunteers out of Salzburg, which is the American headquarters center. And they finally sent us to Innsbruck. Well, Innsbruck happened to be in the French zone. And you had 200 GIs in the whole zone, and you could wear civilian clothes on the weekends when you were off duty. And, you were 45 minutes from the Swiss border and an hour and a half from Munich, Germany. And they even gave you a middle of the week, a Wednesday off duty, and you could do what? Of course, Innsbruck is in the absolute center of the ski country. And I'm noted for being one of the few people that ever took a cable car down. I never learned to get beyond the bunny slope. But again, I can't relate to anything about luck. How come that you had all those nice things?
Hmm.
And if I may go on, so I spend my years, I get out of the service in September of 1953. And of course, I'm home. I'm still with my dad and stepmother. And the only thing I knew that my old boss had offered me a job of some kind or another. And he had become the first PGA pro to be at the first PGA National Golf Club, which was in Dunedin, Florida. And I was going to work for him in January. But other than that, I'm 23 years old. I don't have a nickel in my name. I'm living with my parents. But, I knew so many people at the club because I had been that away that long. And so I'm kind of hanging out at the club. And they were nice enough to offer me privileges. I could play golf and stuff. And as it turns out, my old boss left the club 2 months after I went into service. And I guess the club was looking for a hot shot tournament player, and they hired this fella from the South, and he had been a tournament player, which means he was a good player.
Yeah.
But he was a good player for 2 rounds, and he never made it. So they hired him, and he was not exactly wired to be a club pro. He was kind of a hot shot or whatever. As it turns out, they were letting him go at the end of his 2-year contract. So, of course, I'm hanging around. In fact, I even helped him out in the fall, September, October, where he needed some help. So the job was open. I didn't think much about it because they had a whole bunch of applications from very well qualified people. But I'm hanging out. A member of the board came up to me and said, Ralph, are you staying in the golf business? I said, well, I guess so. I'm going to Florida to work for my boss. He said, you ought to hang around and renew some acquaintances and so forth. I said, oh, well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I had no clue about what was going on. So a couple of weeks later, he came up to me and said, did you ever consider applying for a job as the pro at Transit Valley? I said, no. He said, well, my first thought is it wouldn't take you long to write a resume, which was true. When you caddied at Transit Valley, you were an assistant. In fact, it was funny because a couple of weeks ago I came across that letter I wrote to the board asking to be considered as the golf pro.
Wow.
And I don't know, about 10 days later, I get a phone call and said, you are the pro at Transit Valley Country Club.
Wow.
Oh, believe me, I didn't know what to do. What do I do now?
What did I get myself into?
Where do I go? So in any event, so you talk about luck, being in the right place at the right time. And I don't find out until later about what happened. Well, the board of directors was a 12-man board, and they had narrowed all the applications down to 2 people, and neither side would budge as to which person they wanted. And the group that contacted me said, well, look, it's November. We have to get a golf pro. And they said, well, look, we're not resolving this thing. And the group had contacted me, said, well, look, we have an option. And the option is Ralph Haas. Now, we know who he is. We know he's only been assistant, but he would be a members pro, not a hotshot tour player that did whatever. And look, he would settle things down. We could hire him for a year or two and get somebody else. It might be a better player or whatever. And 46 years later, retired. So
Wow.
luck, it has to be.
We want to thank this year's show partners. We are very fortunate to have two different brands that are partnering with our episodes this year in the season of Life Off the Links. First and foremost, we want to thank 3570 Golf Co. His mission is to provide you the best golf gear and inspire Midwest golf adventures. Because in a game that can only be played and never won, the journey is the reward. They're an amazing brand with incredible products. I'm wearing one of their polos right now. This is the Call, K-A-W polo. I'm real particular about my shirts, and this thing feels like I'm hardly wearing anything. It's so light, so breathable, amazing quality. We've got some of their head covers up here. Head covers. They've got amazing hats, as you can see. All sorts of things. You got to check them out. If you go to their website, 35x70golfco.com. That's 35x70golfco.com. You can check out their stuff. And if you go to get some gear, make sure to use our unique coupon code for the show, LOTL POD. That's LOTLPOD for a 10% discount on your order. That's 3570 Golf Co. We also want to thank Brawn and Fox, who is with us from the very beginning. We love their products. They have incredible hats, as you can see in front of me. What I love is their Hold a Tee hat, where they have a nifty little place for a tee to go in there, so you're not digging through your pockets. Brawn and Fox had the vision to combine the classic golf look with a new, innovative style while remaining affordable for all players. Brawn represents the strength, and the Fox represents the intelligence that is needed to navigate one of the hardest games ever created. Make sure to check out brawnandfox.com/lifeoffthelinks to get your specific discount for our show. You can use our coupon code as well, LOTL10, for a discount on brawnandfox.com. Thank you so much to 3570 Golf Co. and Brawn and Fox. Go check them out. Let's get back to the episode. Wow, that's so cool. That is such a cool story of so many things. And I'm grateful, appreciate that you would be willing to share all of that, because that's just it's fascinating to hear, like you said, this idea of being in the, quote, right place at the right time, and to see how all these things line up for you to end up where you did. And I love the idea of making the most out of an opportunity. You had we'll have them for a year or two, and then we'll move on. And here you go, 46 years later, get to retire from being at the same place.
As it turned out, of course, my old boss, and I did go to work in Florida for that winter, and he had some good connections. So he connected me with the top sales guy at McGregor Golf Company and Spalding, so I was able to get merchandise. I had no credit rating, obviously, and so I was able to fill a pro shop with golf equipment and things. And I thought I was, your ego, and I was a pretty good merchandiser, so I could have a nice pro shop that the members would be proud to come into and hopefully support. So yes, I got through it. I keep saying it was the wing it system. You learn, and again, knowing the people, and you found out, you're in those days, you didn't have general managers, you had committees. So you had the golf chairman was chairman of my committee, and you had a house chairman, and you had a greens chairman. So you answered to a member of the board of directors. And so you pretty much got the idea of what they were looking for, and this is what we want. And so, you ran the tournament programs, you ran your own golf shop, you thought you were a teacher. Again, not having any direct teaching experience. So another wing it deal, you thought so your ego said, okay, let's let's do it. And some way, shape, form, or another, I got through it. Somebody
Wow.
once said, after this was all over, said, "How did you ever survive 46 boards of directors?" I said, "I don't have the slightest idea." So you learn, and obviously I did something that made me a golf pro that the club was somewhat proud to have, or whatever. So, but I don't know. How do you still luck?
Yeah, just you figure it out. And I would say I've just known you here for a few minutes, and I can already tell that there's a lot of humility there in what you were just talking about. I think to have allowed you to be there for 46 years means you were doing something right, Ralph. So, so I want to transition a little bit for you and do a segment that we call Quick Nine. So imagine it's the end of the day. There's a couple hours left of daylight, and you're trying to get a quick 9 holes in. So we do some rapid fire questions for you. And so what I'll do is I'm going to ask you a question, and you just give a one word, one sentence kind of quick answer, just to fire off some quick fire questions for you. Okay, so you ready for it?
Ready.
All right, so here's Quick 9 with Ralph Haas. Hole number 1. What is your favorite course you've ever got to play?
I'm going to say that I was able to play. I was at a whole bunch of what was Scioto Country Club in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
I don't know why I was there. We were able to play it on our way to McGregor Factory. It was just a super golf course, and of course we were treated very nice. So there was a group of pros from Buffalo, and we would go to the McGregor Factory. But Scioto Country Club, beautiful, everything that you'd think that you'd like to have if you owned one,
Yeah.
So Scioto Country Club, Columbus, Ohio.
Awesome. Hole number 2. Do you have a favorite movie? What is it?
Casablanca
Casablanca.
with Humphrey Bogart, whatever. And I don't know how many times I've seen it when it keeps coming on. I don't know why. I just absolutely thought it was great. The acting was fantastic, and the music was great. So if it's on, I'll watch it again. Oh, I think kids. Kids are kids. And for all practical purposes, they're very honest, and they do these stupid, silly things, and you want to kill them, but you still love them.
It's beautiful, kind of full circle, though, that you get to enjoy your grandkids and great-grandkids and still making the most of it now. So that's really, really cool. Hole number 4. Who is maybe the most fascinating tour player that you got to kind of know during your career in the PGA?
Oh, goodness. And I was kind of lucky because, as being a vice president of the PGA, I was involved with, as we mentioned, the Ryder Cup and 4 PGA championships. But I would say that probably one of the most unique guys was Lee Trevino.
Yeah, okay.
And he was a character, but he could play. And and I had a number of occasions to be involved with him as a referee or on the committee, being a guy that would walk with groups in the fairway, and had occasion to help present a trophy here in Buffalo to him. But he was good, and but a real character.
Yeah.
So I would put him as, somebody that I have been involved with more often than any of the others. Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. It's always fun to see him on TV, and still has always been a character. So that's fun. That's cool that you said him. All right, hole number 5. If you had to choose a different career than being a professional in the professional golf business, what do you think you would have done?
Oh gosh, I think, and maybe because I thought I was decent at it, I would probably be an accountant.
Okay.
Well, I thought I could add and subtract well, whatever. But I kind of liked it, I kind of liked bookwork and stuff, and I thought I was decent at it. I still think I am, even though I can't balance my checkbook.
Nowadays, we just all use computers. That's the problem that you said earlier. None of us know how to do our own math. We just use computers. So that's cool. That's great. All right, hole number 6. what is your favorite thing to do with your grandkids, great-grandkids, when you guys are able to be around each other? What's some fun things you like to do with them?
Well, again, it's as much as being just associated with them, because they're good. It's good just to see them, and they treat their grandfather pretty decently most of the time. There are exceptions, no. But the time that you can, and I think when you get to be my age, it's just nice to see them. And it's like my son, he's in California, so we don't see him too often, but he gets here to Buffalo once in a while, plays in a tournament with me. So, but we talk on the phone constantly, and I just appreciate it. So doing something with them, they have all have their lives and things, and they're busy and busier can be, But so it's just happy to see them and whatever.
Yeah. That's one thing, this is a little side note, but that's just one thing I think I appreciate, even as I was hearing your life story growing up, this simplicity of being just with people, with each other, rather than always feeling like we have to do something or be on a phone or be on a computer. But when you had to figure out what to do in the neighborhood, you just went and hung out with friends. You went out and did things. And for you to say one of your favorite things to do is just to be with them. I think there's a simplicity about that we have missed and are missing now in our world, and so I love that. All right, moving on though. Hole number 7. What is your favorite holiday to celebrate?
I'd say Christmas.
Is there a reason behind it?
Oh, I don't know. It's just that people tend to be happier, I think, at Christmas. Yeah. Going through the 3 o'clock in the morning, sneaking downstairs to see what Santa Claus left. It's a time of giving. And I don't think we do enough of that.
Yeah.
Today's world with, all the media stuff, and people aren't kind enough to each other. It seems we've taken sides in the world, and all you do is, But Christmas, and Santa Claus. Go and sit the store and sit on Santa's lap and get so nervous. So that the light shines.
That's so true. That's so good. There's a little bit of magic that's brought back into the world that we need. That's good. All right, this is a fun question that it's become a tradition on the show to ask this in the Quick 9. So if you are on a road trip, whether it's now or just maybe when you were traveling a lot more, and you had to make a stop at a gas station to get some gas and fill up, what's the snack that you're picking up out of the aisle for your little treat on the way?
I haven't thought much about it, because back in the old days, gas stations didn't do that. I mean, they didn't have all the goodies. But we had a gas station close to home, and they did have basics. They had bread, they had milk, cigarettes, of course, which were a big deal. But the best thing about that gas station was they had penny candy. Penny candy? Yes, you could go and you could buy a penny's worth of candy. So my thought of stopping at a gas station, really, now you can get most anything, and I appreciate that, because but the trouble is that gas stations today don't have penny candy.
Yeah, there's not much of penny anything these days.
So if you were to say you were going to stop, who knows? Depends on the occasion. You might want a hamburger, or you might want a candy bar, or you might want a Coke or something. So I'm not sure I could say that I've made that many stops that I've had a particular item that I would want.
I love that though. Penny candy. That's really cool. All right, our last hole number 9, wrapping things up. What is something that you would recommend everyone does on a daily basis just to make the most out of?
Be honest. When the smoke clears away, I think being honest is so important. It's not always good. Not always good results. but you don't have to hide your head in shame, and you don't have to try and cover up for the lie that you made. So if you can be straightforward, I think that's going to, in the long run, end you up ahead of the game.
Thank you for that. That's really good. And I think you're right. You said it's not always good. I would say it might be hard, but it is good at the end of it to be honest and get through that. So thank you for sharing that. That's a little quick 9 with Ralph Haas. Let's jump back into some of the other questions that I have for you. I'd love to, kind of now shift towards a little bit more, I wouldn't say life now, but kind of the later years of being a pro and being a part of some of those Ryder Cup committee and some of the PGA championships. As you reflect back on your time as a part of the PGA, and you still are part of the PGA, but what are some just general reflections you have about really the state of golf today versus what you've experienced over 70 plus years of being a member of the PGA?
Oh, goodness. I think the golf, of course, it's improved considerably.
Yeah.
And for many reasons, obviously. But I don't know that a Ben Hogan or a Lee Trevino or a Byron Nelson would still not be a champion. I think the thing that bothers me a little bit is money.
Yeah, tell me more, Ralph.
Money, money, money. We all want money. We would all like to probably have $1 million. But I get worried about what it's doing to golf. And I think we've seen it with the lift and what the Saudis have been able to do, and your friend Greg Norman. Anyway, it's about money.
Yeah.
And I can't, if somebody says, here, I'm going to give you $200 million if you come play in my group, and we're only going to have to play 54 holes and not total, and we can wear shorts, and we're only going to have 7 tournaments. Boy, that's pretty hard to refuse. And I don't necessarily the player blame the player for that. A good share of those guys, of course, were on maybe a little downhill slide. Still great players. So I don't necessarily blame them. The one thing I dislike about what some of them did is they degraded the PGA Tour.
Right.
Number one, they wouldn't be there getting all those money offers if they didn't have the PGA Tour.
Right, yeah.
And the PGA Tour now is in a position where, hey, they're fighting money. I mean, at what point, if the Saudis come around and offer the PGA Tour, we're going to give you $9 zillion, but we'll take over, and that bothers me. Golf, of course, and the ability of the players and all the advantages that they have. I say advantages. I mean, I don't say they haven't earned them, but now they have coaches, they have professional caddies, they have their own private planes, various things. But okay, good for them. But don't forget what got you there.
Right.
And so we'll see.
Yeah. So do you feel like the trajectory of the game is in a good place overall, or do you think, ultimately this will come through this in a better place, or are you kind of worried about the state of the game going forward?
Well, I'm a little worried about it, but I hope better forces will reign and the groups will get together and golf will be the better of it. That's my hope and my wish. And I would think it would be, well, I just hope they're lucky. Lucky as I was.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, just a couple more questions and then we'll kind of wrap things up for the show. But what's something that you feel like, the game of golf has taught you that's just a valuable lesson that you keep in life in general?
Well, I hope honesty. When I say that, we go out, golf. Hey, we goof. Hey, we nudged the ball and gave a better lie. You
Hmm.
called the penalty on yourself. And there are exceptions, obviously, but overall, I feel as though that's still part of the mainframe of being, yeah, I'm going to even say a golfer. I don't care at what stage of golf you're at. What if you know the rules, and I'm not talking beginners and stuff like that, may not know, but if you're at that stage and you say, oh boy, I did wrong, raise your hand and say, okay, I'll take the penalty.
Yeah.
So I get
Yeah.
back to honesty.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think it prevails. Again, there are exceptions. We know that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen that even. I remember recently this year. There's the famous Sahith Thagala called a penalty on himself in the bunker, one of these tournaments that ultimately no one saw. Even the camera barely could pick it up, and yet he said, "No, I really feel like I hit the sand, and I'm going to call the shot." And I think it ended up talking about money, and I think it cost him about $2.5 million
Mm-hmm.
overall for the tournament. And so
I know.
talk and you know what though, I think the respect that he gained, especially then he played in the President's Cup and just the support he had, I think
Mm-hmm.
completely changed because of that decision to be honest and a man of integrity. And that's one thing that is so an integral part of this game is integrity and honesty. So I love that perspective. Um, all right, Ralph. So I have two more questions. One, 94 years of getting to live this life. What would I just can't leave this podcast without just asking you some general, I mean, you might have already said this, but just life advice for people that, I mean, I'm in my middle 30s, younger than I am even that are listening. What would you, what a perspective on how to live this life and be able to be on 94 years old and be on a podcast and doing all this and sharing about your life and the luck that you've had. What would you say?
Oh gosh. Well, as I say, luck is a major share of it, but we've had ups and downs, like loss of my mother, a divorce, a very ill second wife, ill for from 8 years or so with for vascular diseases. But I don't know. The stones are thrown at you, and some of them you can catch, and some of them you can't. And I don't know. I can't answer why you hang in
Hmm.
and you keep swinging. I say, look, keep swinging, and sooner or later you hit a good one.
Hmm.
Again, I've had more good ones than I've had bad ones, and so even now, as the age, the parts don't work as well as they used to, and so you have things, but you have them, and you got one or two things you do: live with them or don't live with them. And
Right.
I'm starting to find out that you live with them.
Hmm.
But you still want to be around to kid around with pretty granddaughters and stuff like that.
That's amazing. Well,
Yeah, so just
thank
hang
you.
in, keep
Yeah.
swinging,
I love
whatever.
that. Keep swinging, and eventually you'll hit a good one. I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna take that with me from today for sure. All right, our last question for you, Ralph. Before or for a long time of my life, I was involved in a ministry to high school students, and so I have a passion for high school aged kids. And I've always asked my guests to finish the show, what advice would you give to aspiring high school aged golfers that might be wanting to get into the game professionally or be around the game in some form or fashion? What advice would you give that age group?
Well, I think that when you say passion, this desire for whatever reason that you've come up with it, say whether you started at caddy or you watch the television and you say, "Hey, golf, this is something I really, really want to get into." And again, it's golf is not a simple thing. The golf swing is quite complex.
Yes.
But if you have the passion, keep keep swinging.
Hmm.
Hang in there and go with your passion. Now, it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to work at it. You don't get better by, what was it Mr. Hogan said, the more I practice, the luckier I get. So if you have the passion, stay with it, hang in with it. You're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. But to reach your goals, you can't drop out. You
Yeah.
can't lose that passion because if you do, the steps forward are pretty limited.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
high school, someone was telling me just the other day, a friend that we knew, their 11-year-old granddaughter had just made the high school golf team.
Wow.
Fantastic. 11-year-old. Yeah, now she's taken lessons, she's practiced, she's done everything. But at 11, her passion is done pretty well for her. So I
That's pretty
think that
good.
if more of us had that, regardless of whether it's golf or something else,
Yeah.
hang in with what our passion and we'll end up ahead of the game.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. And I will say you talked a lot about luck, and I will say it is true luck that I have had the privilege to even be with you today, connected with your granddaughter, Amy, and she's the reason. I think she might even be behind camera back there. But the reason that we are able to do this, and it's just been a real joy and a real privilege to get to hear from you. And so thank you, Ralph, again for joining us on the show today.
Kevin, thank you so much for exposing me to my first podcast. And now I know what it is. I thoroughly enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed you, and I appreciate it very much. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
We'll make sure to let Amy know how you can listen or watch this once we get it all uploaded and ready to go too. So
I can't wait to see it.
great. Well, everyone that's watching or listening, thank you as well for being with us again on another episode of Life Off the Links this week with Ralph Haas, legend of the game with the PGA. We are so grateful that you've been paying attention to us. We hope that you subscribe to the channel if you're liking what you're seeing and follow us on your podcasts. And we will be back again with another episode soon. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.